Okay, so we've been on the boat now for 3 weeks. We're still in Papeete, and once again, this is not a boring alert, but don't stress. I'm not going to start up a cruising, voyaging YouTube channel like everyone else on the internet and YouTube, because it's fantastic. You can dial up anything. Anyway, but just to you know, the people that are following, we're still here 3 weeks later and haven't done anything to the boat. We just moved it to the marina, and we've been waiting on a couple of issues. One is we've had the HYDROVANE flown in, and we've now got it, so we're going to fit that, but it took forever because we brought it in under the name of Adventure, which is the new name of the boat, registered as a Polish ship, but we haven't got the deletion certificate from the previous owner, so we can't do anything yet. And so it's been 3 weeks on computers, you know, not doing anything else. Anyway, now we're going to try and get this on in the next couple of days, and we'll show you exactly what's going on. Not as if it's going to be a detailed installation manual, because it was funny. Before we even got it, I got online, and there's plenty of videos for fitting HYDROVANEs. And in fact, you know, it gets a bit further than that. Jane said last night, is, hey, do you reckon HYDROVANE's the most popular wind vane? And I've got absolutely no idea. There are two types of wind vanes. You've got servo pendulums, which is a different principle, like the Aries, or you've got the auxiliary rudder steering system, which is the HYDROVANE. And we see a truckload of HYDROVANEs. You know, not every second boat, but a lot of the boats here in Papeete have got HYDROVANEs. So it's obviously pretty popular, and they've obviously been doing it for a long time. So get online, you know, fitting a HYDROVANE, and there's Will, who is Mr. HYDROVANE, and his wife fitting a HYDROVANE. It was 9 years ago, and it's had 60,000 views or something, or 56, and it was very informative. I got a couple of tips off that. And then I looked at another couple of other installations for the HYDROVANE, and I picked up some really good tips. So you know, I've already learnt a lot from YouTube, so I don't have to do it all again, but we'll just show you for fun. And it hits you straight away that they're obviously sending out a lot, because the packaging, there's 5 big boxes flown in, really well secured. And we passed the first test because I didn't lose these. Oops. I didn't lose these little suckers. Because apparently this is the counterbalance weights. They used to lose a few because they were stored in a different way, but now they've packaged them, so people apparently take the main component out and throw the box away and lose the lead counterbalance. But I passed the first test, we haven't lost those. And we've ordered all the extras. We've got all the backing plates and the pads from the hull, you know, so you can get lots of pieces. Obviously, just for the record, yes, I've got an interest in this because HYDROVANE are one of our partners and they look after us really well. So yes, I didn't pay for this at all. I got it for free. I just had to pay for the freight. But that's part of the deal, you know. HYDROVANE have been good for us. This is the first HYDROVANE I've actually owned. I've sailed under HYDROVANEs, you know, many years ago. I know they're good. You've seen what happens in the Golden Globe race. It's quite an amazing situation. We've actually got one on our Swan 57 as well, Explorer, as an emergency rudder backup, and that's probably on the limit of actually sailing and using it to sail the boat. I haven't been on Explorer sailing with the HYDROVANE, which we will do later on in life, and I'm sure it'll sail the boat once we balance the boat correctly. Anyway, so it's going to be kind of fun. I took my hat off to keep out of the shade, but I should be careful because I get lots of skin cancers and stuff, so don't worry about that. All friendly ones. As far as living on the boat goes, the best part is that whilst we haven't gone sailing and we haven't done anything, living on board, it's a fantastic boat. I really like it. And later on, I will do a little bit of we did a walkthrough before, but I'm going to just talk about some of the things that are really good about this boat. But it confirmed my theory because we've never owned one before, but I like the rig, I like the design, you know, Finno are pretty cool, the engineering's good. But now I've been living on it, it's great to live on. It's a perfect size for a couple that wants to have some friends every now and then. And yeah, pretty happy. So let's see what happens with fitting this vane. Another little thing, the first thing you get when you get the manual, right, you got the operating manual and the installation guide. Really cool. And I thought, what the hell have we got some galvanized, well, not galvanized, you know, plated metal bolts for? And that's to save you using and winding out all the nylock nuts, you know, which is true, because nylocks are not meant to be in and out, in and out, in and out. It's just a little thing, but it's good to have them. And then they've even got the split locking washers for the backup plates. You know, even though you put on nylon lock nuts, in the ones behind the transom, you can put these little tiny skinny split locking nuts on that as a double security, so they'll never go, because you won't be looking at those ones on the back of the transom very often. In fact, we have to cut an access hole in the petrol storage locker on the boarding platform of this boat, and then put an inspection port. So once we do that, we can keep an eye on it. But very clever. My first impression, the packaging is great. They've sent out so many, they've just learnt everything about it, and good communicators, all that stuff. So let's get into it. So just to give you an idea, I mean, this packaging is phenomenal. I've already ripped that. That was actually, this is the main shaft. That was screwed in. I just popped it off and cut it. And then the same at the other end. You can see that. That was screwed in as well. It's got the straps on it. Then you've got all these actual supports to make sure that the shaft, because this is the main body of the shaft, is well secured and doesn't get rammed and slammed in transit. All of these boxes are pretty heavy, but this looks really good. You know, it's got a bit of movement there. It's got timber packers. This is the one thing that you've got to watch later on, but this is all arrived perfect. The boxes are actually good, and yeah, that's cool. This has got the rudder in it. This box has got the rudder, and this one here has got the main head and vane gear, and it's all once again screwed in really well. So not exactly a happy day open box scenario video like everyone else does, but all pretty cool. And down there you've got the main arms coming out of the system. So yeah, packaging, they've got it sussed. So we're still on the marina in Papeete about 7 weeks later. We've been here 7 weeks now, waiting for registration of the boat. So we haven't even really got into the HYDROVANE. Our biggest challenge on this installation, which I'm about to start now, is the height of the targa. Now you can see where this red rope is. That's about the center of where the actual HYDROVANE is going to come down. Okay, so it's up there, slightly offset to port. And it's only about 2.5 meters. It's only about 2.5 meters from, in fact, it's 2.58 meters from the waterline to the underside of the targa. And that means it's really short. So we've got the stubby vane on the top, but we had to actually get another shaft sent in because it needs to be really low. We never really had that measurement when we bought the boat, and Will and John, they sent us what looked about right from previous installations, but we're super low. So anyway, now we've got the super short shaft, and we're going to start putting it in. The challenge for this design, which is similar to a lot of Beneteaus, is that you got to get to the transom, and it's like a double hull because we've got a boarding, you know, like a duck board here. So I've got to actually cut. Fortunately, this is actually a storage for your petrol, you know, for your outboards. So you can put two 10-litre containers of petrol in there. It actually drains to the water. It's got its own drain, and I'm about to cut a hole to put this inspection port in there so I can actually get to the back of the transom, and that'll give us the mount for the low central clamp on the actual main shaft of the HYDROVANE itself. So that meant we had to go and buy a jigsaw, and we had to try sourcing this even. That was a bit of fun, but anyway, it should now be pretty simple. And the process is, the reason we're still here is that it took nearly 6 weeks to get the deletion certificate from France, from the French registry, before we actually get to put it on the Polish registry. And that was because it was holidays in France, and if you know Europe and how France works, everything shuts down for a month in August, July and August. So we're through that now. We've got it. We've submitted our Polish registry, which was supposed to only take 24 to 48 hours. We've now been waiting 4 days, and there's no indication of when we're going to get it. And we are now running out of time. So that means we can't go to Suvarov Atoll. We can't even go to Tonga. We're going to have to go straight for Fiji. And you know, then we've got to pull it out of the water and then head back to France. So this is the definition of cruising in paradise. You know, everyone thinks it's pretty straightforward. We've been working all the time down below, you know, running the MGR, the Mini Globe Race, and working on the Golden Globe Race, and even talking to people about the Ocean Globe Race. So it's not as if we've been wasting our time, but we would have much rather have been doing that on the road somewhere. But Papeete is a pretty cool place. So now let's see how long it takes to actually assemble and fit the HYDROVANE. I think it'll be, it's late in the day today. I'll cut this inspection port out today. Then I can access everything, and I'll get into it tomorrow. And I reckon it should only be a couple of days, so we should be right. We'll try and show you what's going on and the issues. But the first one is, if you've got a target, make sure you tell HYDROVANE the actual distance from the bottom of the target to the actual water line, and then you'll get the right central shaft. A lot of boats, we've had boats here all the time, there's a hell of a lot of HYDROVANEs here. It's without question the single most popular wind vane on all the boats here by a mile is HYDROVANEs. And it's interesting to see some of them. Some of the boats you can actually fit it so that the actual pivot for the wind vane head is above the target, so it's sticking right up in the air. But I didn't want to do that. That's all a bit too much for us. I'll be quite happy, to keep it underneath that lot. We've got, that's pivoting solar panels up under there. There's not a lot, it's 360 watts, but it's been enough. We don't plug into shore power here at all. It's enough to keep us going, but when we're underway, we'll have to wait and see what happens. So anyway, to the hunt with this thing. So this is pretty simple, you think, just inspection port, cutting in there. Once I get access to that, I can get to the transom, because I've got to put a backing plate in there and all those sorts of things. So that's pretty important. It's interesting. There's always something going wrong, even to the point where I've had to move it back. You've got to make sure you've got enough room to manoeuvre the jigsaw here, so you can swing it around. I'll come from that direction, then I'll take the other from around that direction, so that's okay. Of course, you do a 10mm hole and the blade doesn't fit in there, so you got to do two side by side. It should be a pretty simple process, but anyway, we'll see how that goes. This is really tricky, really quite tricky. Yeah. Can't even fucking see it. Okay, Beneteau built a pretty good boat, really. It's quite surprising. Even the whole issue of the human dynamic is amazing. This is just the perfect locker for keeping outboard fuel, and there's lots of things like that all over the boat. And that's pretty chunky for an inside moulding, So anyway, now, will it fit? Will it fit? Yep. Okay, so this was our second shaft because we made a mistake on the measurements, but I just want to show you the extent they go to on shipping and packaging. It's a cardboard box and it's quite heavy, but they've got lots of special stuff. Like you got your external strapping, you got tape, you cut the other tapes there, get rid of all that. You come down and they've actually got, they actually manufacture the shipping boxes, so there's no way this can move, but it is important to check that, because sometimes they talk about some of them have been damaged in transport, but I find it hard to believe because the boxes are really good. And yeah, this is our super short shaft, so it's very very solid. Yeah, you just got to pull them all apart now and then see how it goes. So anyway. Holy shit. That's more than 10 centimeters. I think they didn't. Oh, anyway, we'll have a look at that. Ooh, that's secret business. So here's the difference on our shaft. This was the original one, and that's the shorter one. It's 23 centimeters shorter, and this is actually called them. I won't go into the actual ones, but they actually have standard sizes, and this is small -5. and you can actually go 5 centimeters smaller than this, but this looks perfect now. So a couple of little interesting things about the detail of what HYDROVANE do for when you're installing. If you look at this here, first of all, this actually slides on the shaft. It's really tight, okay? But every one of these castings where it's clamping the shaft is set up with an adjusting bolt here. So this is the actual mounting bolt to clamp it on the shaft. But you just take it out, and they've got another spot there, and you just screw it in, and so you can actually pry the casting apart. So that now if I just stick that on here and tighten it up a bit, you can see here it's opening it up a bit. So when it opens up, you can actually just slide it up and down. It's a pretty simple principle, but it's cool that they've actually done that so that you can actually get things happening easily. The other thing that happens is the final installation on all the nuts and bolts are with nylock nuts. Now nylocks are these little bizzos here. I think everyone knows what they are. I mean, there's nylock, but they've got a nylon seal. So when you do them up, the nylon stops them actually undoing. But you don't want to do them up, undo them while you're installing the system on the for testing and stuff. So they even provide 2 galvanized just ordinary hard iron bolts. So when you're actually doing that, you use these ones. You use them so that you're not actually and I want to clamp this on here now, so I'm going to put that in. That's captive there. Grab the washer, and I'm going to use the steel, not stainless steel, nylock. I'm just going to use an ordinary steel nut because I want to clamp it on this shaft while I'm actually while I'm actually doing the dummy installation, so you don't damage the nylocks, because every time you tighten them up and undo them, you're weakening the nylock stuff on them. So anyway, but it's coming together okay. It's cool. If you look at the actual mounting bolts that are going to go through the transom, they're buried. They're completely buried away, and it's not going to be easy to get to them. So when you've done it all up with your nylocks, with your backing plates and bits and pieces, they give you these split nuts as well, which means you can put them on. They're actually half the width, and they actually lock up again. So you've got nylocks, you've got these half lock nuts, and you should never need to see them again. They'll never work loose, the ones behind the transom. All the rest of the ones, they suggest, and we're seeing this in the BOC, if this was on an aircraft, what you do is you get a bit of nail polish and you just put a strip. You just put a strip of nail polish, once it's all tightened up, on the surface and across onto the fitting, and that way you can, just by looking at it visually, you can actually see that they're coming undone or moving or whatever it is. So we'll actually do the same thing, and that's what everyone in the BOC does. Not the BOC, the Golden Globe does. So using aircraft tech, but it's good to get all this stuff provided in the kit. It's quite well thought out. They've obviously dealing with a lot of owners, fitting a lot of HYDROVANEs. Okay, so backing plates, there's different opinions on how this should happen, but effectively you've got your fitting the H bracket on the bottom, which is going to go onto this synthetic pad onto the transom, and then behind that you're going to have an aluminium backing plate. This is standard accessory, so you buy these as an option, which is, why wouldn't you get it? And in my opinion, this is much better than teak, because teak's wood and something will happen to it in the end, but I like low maintenance stuff. So they come pre-drilled, pre-shaped, but what you're going to have to do is be really careful about how that sits on the actual fiberglass of the hull. If it's any curve there, you have to actually shape that to make sure it's going to fit perfectly, so when it's clamped in with the bolts, there's no unusual stresses on the bolts, or the bolts will eventually break. It's really critical that the mating happens perfectly. I've seen some installations on YouTube, some people, they'll actually put epoxy on this and epoxy it to the inside of the boat after they drill these holes. In other words, they put that in the position to mount the HYDROVANE, drill the holes through the transom, and then take them off, and then put this on, just put it on and with epoxy so it takes the shape and any imperfections of the glass, and then actually drill through the holes in the transom to drill this on there. But I reckon that's a bit counterproductive, so I don't think I'll stuff it up. I'm actually going to pre-drill these holes because there's good clearance on the H bracket, which is the in fact, that's not the H bracket. This is the big pad for the H bracket. There's plenty of room in the back for that, so I'm not going to move the position. But one of them where it goes onto the side of the transom is going to be pretty tight, so I can't pre-drill this until I decide the actual position of that side arm that goes out, because this may come up against the hull or something. So I got to make sure that goes in, because I might end up drilling the holes offset. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to drill it right here. So Jane's paranoid I'm going to drill into the table or whatever, but you know, part of the course. So anyway, highly recommend buying the accessory pads. You know, it makes life a lot easier, because so far it's all very simple. Anyway, that's it. That one I'm not going to do. This one I'm going to do. Actually, something I thought of. See this stuff here? This is a yoga mat that I've chopped up. I'm forever using yoga mats on the boat. When you get my age, you've got knobbly knees, you know. You can lay it down and use it to get your knees if you're sitting on the deck or whatever it is. Started from Tracker, my little Mini. I always had foam, you know, big thick pads folded over, because I was forever on my knees down below, you know. And it's just really handy to have foam all the time if you're working and, you know, sitting out. So that's cool. Anyway, we got that, we got that. Now, am I going to drill the table? I don't think so. I should pop center this, but I'm not going to, because it's just a clearance hole. Oh, maybe I will have to. This is Bodgy Brothers. Yep, I'm going to have to pop it, so I'll come back when I get a pop thing. Okay, never do this, folks. See, this is Bodgy Brothers. You should never do this. I'm going to use the base of a drill to pop it, because I can't find a pop punch here. So this should be enough to get it about right. Oh, look at that, perfect. Don't do this at home, kids. It stuffs up your drills. But anytime I'm going to drill through metal, I would use a smaller drill first, and then oh, look at that, perfect. Okay, but as I say, don't do that at home. You stuff up your drills. Oh, I could use that again on there. This is recycling the packaging to stuff my battery box. Okay, I might need some oil in there. You should use a drill press for this, but I don't have one. It's getting hot. Okay, so this is the most critical point. It's actually connecting this H bracket down there to the transom. And the key objective is when that's bolted, and imagine this is the H bracket when it goes on, it'll control whether the whole thing is vertical or not. Because if I mount it like that, then the whole system's going to be on its side, right, which is not good. So it's absolutely critical it's vertical. It doesn't matter at the moment whether the vane is going fore and aft, because that bracket hinges, so you can put it together. And I just had a panic attack because I thought for a minute this might not be thick enough, because the rudder will actually come up past the little lip on our transom here, and you need at least 55 millimeters or 5.5 centimeters distance between the leading edge of the rudder and the little extension off the transom, but it's actually going to work right. So I'll be the key things for me is I want this to be as far as I can get it towards the center line. The ship's rudder is down here. I've got that hole cut out, ready to go for it, but I can still be a bit over the side, because it's all about getting to the bolts down at the, the furthest one on the starboard side here. So it's probably, I think for me, it's probably going to be about there, because I can do them up. It looks pretty good. So that's probably about where it's going to be. I can also adjust the height once it's here. But this is super short now. I could actually have 2 inches higher, but it doesn't matter. I want to keep the shaft out of the water. So that looks good. And what I'm going to do is I'll end up drilling one hole, probably this one here. And then so that'll then get me in a position. You want to get over there, Jean, and sit down so you can see what goes on. So if I effectively drill one hole here, I can then decide how far up and down I want to see where it's going to be vertical. So I'll position that. I'll get Jane on the wharf over there or something on the marina, and we'll do a plumb line when it's a bit calmer to make sure it's vertical. So for now, this is just like a rough fit to show, if I don't drop anything, that that's about the right height. You can see there the rudder, the steering shaft is just out of the water, and the rudder's going to go up over the top of that. This is about the right height, about the right position. There's enough clearance on the leading edge, and this is the critical bit, just to make sure which is vertical, because there's no latitude to change that once I drill the two holes. Okay. Okay, so it's funny, I've been a bit hung up on the idea of having the rudder post actually vertical, because it's important, because you can't adjust it once you've picked your vertical position of this rudder post. But when you think about it, there's no point in actually getting too uptight, because I mean, a yacht, when it's sailing, certainly it's never horizontal or vertical, right? The waterline's never like this. The mast is up. As soon as you start sailing, the boat starts heeling, you know, 20 degrees, and the rudder still works. So the idea then is, when you're doing this, is to get it as vertical as you think you can. If you're 1 or 2 degrees out, it doesn't really affect it, you know, because that's going to change as the boat's heeling. But obviously you want to get it as vertical as you can. If you're on the hard, when you're mounting your hydrovane, you could use a spirit level, you know, just a builder's spirit level, put it on the actual post and get it level, and then just drill your holes and bolt it in. The issue is this H bracket here. There's 2 bolt holes. So there's the H bracket and the packer there, and you've got 1 bolt hole there and another one there. Okay, so at the moment I've actually pre-positioned it so it's at the right height for me. Okay, I've clamped it into the bottom of the H bracket there. It's just above the waterline, but the waterline's going to run off at the bottom of the hull as we're sailing. And I've drilled 1 hole, just a clearance hole, and I've got 1 bolt in it, because I can now twist that. You can see I can twist it either way, and the key thing, because the second bolt's not in there, is the drilling of the second bolt hole. As soon as I do that, it's fixed. Okay, so I don't have a spirit level and the boat's moving. We've had to wait a few hours for the harbour to calm down a bit, and now it's pretty reasonable. The other thing you can do, if you've got a targa there, you can actually drop a plumb bob. So this red line here, the thin red line, could just hang into space. And obviously gravity is completely vertical. I couldn't do that because there's wind and it's blowing around. So, I've positioned it here, and how do I know that that's vertical? Because I actually used the mast there of that mega yacht way over there. It's about probably 250, maybe even a bit more than that, 200, 300 meters away. Those masts will be absolutely vertical. So we've got an inclinometer just by the companionway. It's very sensitive. It's got the usual one, but it's got one which goes from 0 to 10 degrees. So I can tell that usually we're about 1 degrees list to port, about 1 degree at the moment. So, and it just moves around. So I've actually moved this weight here until, it doesn't matter where you are, you can actually line up those masts. Even when I'm here with one eye shut, this red line is exactly on that mast. And if I line it up with the doors on this catamaran here, on this lagoon, the door post, everything is vertical. So I know this red line is vertical. Okay, so that's my datum point. And even when I'm here just by myself, if I'm down here and about to mark this hole here, I can actually see just the distance from my eye there when it's about vertical. At the moment it's way over the side, so if I pull that over, I've got to come right over here, and that's about vertical right there. So it's a pretty good indication, you know, I can actually see. So what I'm going to do now is just put that together. I'm going to put a bolt in there to make sure the backing pad and the actual H bracket itself are together, and then I'm going to put a pencil in there and just mark the hole, and then that's going to be good enough for me. And then I'm just going to take all this off and actually drill the hole. And once that's in there, then it's just a clearance hole. I've got enough room on the backing plate here to get to the bolts in there, and the same here, so that's okay. And I want this to be, as the center line of the boat is back actually the middle of this, so that's the center line, so I'm about 40 centimeters off the center line, which is fine. But if I want to squeak the distance on the flip-flop vane, the closer to the center line, the easier it is to stay away from the bottom of the targa. But as it turns out, I think when this all comes together, I'm going to be about, the vane should be about 7 centimeters from the bottom of that that targa, so it should be okay. And then I've just done a rough guide to see the arms are long enough. We have to move this bracket. This will spin around a bit because one of the arms will then come into this position underneath the nav light, and the other one will go behind me onto the side of the hull, which is pretty traditional because there's a lot of these Beneteau 423s, and a lot of them have already done this. So the issue had been the height, because I've got a very low targa. And so I got a very small shaft, but it'll work out just fine, and it's very strong and so on. Once that's on, you'll see then you have some adjustment with the fittings. And the first one is that H bracket allows you, once you're in line with the mast, you know, so it's vertical there, the critical point then is, I'll put it down the other way, if you imagine this is the rudder in the water, like my hand is the rudder in the water, what you don't want to do, that's vertical straight down, you don't want to be kicked forward. If you're kicked forward and it's steering, it's going to be super sensitive and hunt. You either want to be straight down, like vertical, or a little bit aft, so that it desensitizes the rudder, it's not hunting and so on. But you can overcome some of that with the gearbox. You know, I call it the gearbox, but you've got a special position for 1, 2, 3 in the sensitivity of the HYDROVANE in the gearbox sort of thing, which allows you to adjust the amount of turn of the rudder from 15 degrees, 25 degrees, or up to 50 degrees, you know, on the actual rudder in the water. And you use that as well with your flip-flop vane to vary the sensitivity and the speed of reaction and so on, depending on boat speed, wind speed, all those sorts of issues. But that's another one. But for now, I could basically, Jane's here filming now, thank you, Jane. But I could, in fact, I've been doing this by myself. You know, I could just rope this up. You can vary the position with this rope, and here, you know, I just built the first hole in. That's just determining the height of the H bracket. It's not a big deal. That's determined by the waterline. Get that in, and now the critical one for vertical positioning is I'm going to side it up off this. I could do that by myself. Just hold it across there, and then mark the hole, and then pull it all off again, and then just drill the hole, and then we're ready to start assembling later on. So it's all pretty simple, and so I don't drop anything in the water, I'm not going to worry about filming everything now. I'm going to pull it apart and measure it up and do all the bits. So you can film a bit if you want, Jane. But I will just get this happening here. So that one is in. Oh, I need the bolt. I haven't dropped anything yet, but I shouldn't even talk about that. They say put a tarpaulin under the boat, you know, don't drop anything, because it's you know, anyway, so far so good. I've dropped plenty of things on other boats, and every time you do it, it's all you think about, don't drop anything, don't drop anything. And when you drop it and say, why did I do that? So anyway, that's together now, so that's okay. And then this sounds crazy. I'm going to get Jane to check this in a minute, but that looks about right there. So I'm gonna need to check me on this, Jane. So do you want to get down behind and line up the edge of this tube on the red rope here, over there? Just keep going back there. Squat down over the coaming. Squat down over the coaming. Have a look, see the red line, line it up with the mast over there, and line it up with the edge of the vane here. That looks about vertical there, don't you reckon? That's about vertical? Yep, okay, Chinese vertical. Okay, no worries. I'm going to hold that there. Hold that there so it doesn't move. And I'm going to take that out of there. And then I'm going to put this through the lot there and mark the hole. That's called a bodgy job, but that's pretty cool. Yep. Okay, I'm going to check the diagonals on that as well. Okay, so let's see what happens when we drill the hole and start putting it together later on. Thank you. Okay, now I want you to grab hold of this and hold it really hard up against it. Hard up against here. Okay, so it's Friday the 13th, by the way. We've been at it for a while. We got a cold as well, but we finally got our registration, and we're planning to leave in a few days. So HYDROVANE, interesting situation. You've got, with the mounting brackets, the H bracket, you'll see it's sort of a bit universal. They've got a pivoting half shaft here, so you can have that pivoting up and down, which is pretty straightforward, and also in and out. So it gives you the impression, you know, when you see the flexibility there, because you can lock that in, that you can do the similar thing back here, but it's not actually the case, because if Jane can get around here, this one, certainly it'll rotate like that, but it's on one plane. You can't turn it. So Jane will just reposition. So it means that the slightest angles have to fit this perfectly, you know, so the tube coming out of there, when you come up here, it's got to fit flat. And you can see if I go up high, there's a gap. You've got to keep going down to get that right. And the same, if you come too far in, then it goes out. So there's only really one position that you've got to set it up that'll actually work. And it caused a bit of a confusion for me. See there, that's up too high, but if it's not angled right here, but as you screw it back the other way, it fits perfectly. So these bolts aren't in a line because the transom's slowly tilting back. So you really do have to sort of pick an approximate position where you think it's going to work, but then do a final dry fit before you mark your holes to make sure that the actual brackets are not under stress. They've got to be quite relaxed. This is very flexible for the shape of the boat, but you really have to get it right, you know. Otherwise any load on the bolts and you'll pop the heads and all that sort of stuff. So it took a bit of mucking around, and I got completely confused, and you'll see there's two holes above these holes. Okay, see those holes? They're our Friday the 13th wrong holes. We had to drop it right down. I thought we could angle it back here, but you can't do that. So yeah, a bit of a stuff up, but it doesn't matter. It's only two holes, you know. And the dry fit is really the one where you get it happening. So that's the way it's going to look. We've got the one arm going across there. I've got to shape the packer a little bit, but on the aluminium bracket it fits on the transom perfectly. But when you just come out a little bit more, I've got to put the packer in, I've got to shape it. And I've had to cut the backing plate, which I'll show you later. I had to cut that to shape on the inside. That's definitely got to have epoxy on it. This one's got epoxy on the backing plate, but the one up here on the transom, it's dead flat, so I don't need epoxy. But that one absolutely has, because there's a lot of laminates in there and stuff. So, but we've dry fitted, proved the concept, got this vertical, cut the tubes to make it. You need to cut the tubes to do the dry fit. That's part of the challenge. And you know, we've got to pull it in and a few other bits and pieces, and it should be right. So. Next one now, the dry fit's in position. Probably tomorrow we'll start bolting it all together and see what happens, you know. Okay, so we're officially one day behind now, because yesterday it just poured with rain all day, and where I had my inspection port down there, I think it leaked water into the back of the boat. Because anyway, it's a long story. We've got to get a bit of water out of there now. So a couple of things that you can see now. Pretty much all the hard work is done. The frame is set up. So we've got this landed here. We've had to cut this tube to get the right distances. Same over there. I've gone for right on the extremity to give me some standing space there and to put things in. This is as solid as a rock. it's completely vertical, okay, and I've checked it from the side, so it's not going to push the rudder forward of the center line. It'll actually be vertical a little bit back. So that's all pretty straightforward, but there was a couple of traps, a couple of things that I would strongly recommend. Well, not traps, but things that make life easier. You can imagine when you've got the bolt going through the foot of the tube, okay, then it goes through a packer about this big, then it goes through the deck, okay, or the hull, you know, the transom, wherever it's going, and you've got two holes, all right? So you imagine you're trying to align all these holes all the way down. By the time you get to the backing plate, and the bolts are pretty big, even if you drilled the holes in your backing plate, which is an aluminium plate, on the bench before you fit them, they probably won't fit because the bolts may not be perfectly horizontal. They might be kicked out a little bit or a little bit in. So it's a good idea to, when you do the two holes in the backing plate, I would do one hole here sort of thing, and where the other one is, I'd do two side by side and just file them off so that you've got a bit of like a latitude there to fit it on. Because at the end of the day, you end up putting Sikaflex on the foot of the mount. Then you put Sika again on the foot of on the back of the pad where it goes onto the transom. Then you've got to put epoxy filler on the inside of this. And while they're all wet and gooey, you've got to fit them together and put your nuts on. And it's like juggling, and it's, in the end, it's a lot easier if you just make one hole elongated, so you can put one bolt on the backing plate and then just angle it across, and even if it's out a little bit, it'll just drop straight on. So that's something that can save you a lot of time. The other thing is here, I fell for the trap. I think I explained it last time. I just assumed that you could actually put this mount wherever you want because you can angle the tube down, you know, to it. You can actually do that, but if you do, you've got to actually have this pad here horizontal. You can't have it vertical. So I drilled the holes there for a vertical position, and it just simply doesn't work. If I had to put the base of the pad out here horizontally, like level with the waterline, then you can angle it down and up and down and all the rest of it. But then you've got to be careful also that you can only sprit this so far. So the reality is we probably should have used the PVC pipe. They recommend using PVC pipe, chop it up, and it's very light and easy to manage, and you can dummy it up and so on. We didn't do any of that because I didn't want to go around and try and find some PVC pipe. I just used the existing tubes, had to make a few assumptions, and I got that wrong. So I got two holes in the transom that are wrong. Doesn't matter. That's all fine. The other interesting thing here was, you know, my bodgy job, call it what you like, but this pad was rocking when you put it on the transom because there's a curve there. It's rocking. So what you're supposed to do is actually shape the bottom of this packer. All right. So if you had an angle grinder, I could have shaped it. If you're doing timber, you do the same so that these are landing flat. And in the end, the price is here we don't have a grinder on board, and the price is here like astronomical to buy a grinder. So I thought I'd be really clever, and I bought a rasp, right? And I would just file it away. You know, the rasp is very simple and so on, but it was going to take too long. So in the end, all I did was I put a epoxy filler there, and I drilled the holes already, put the bolts in loose, and I've actually built an epoxy pad on there. So it's well and truly stuck on now, but it doesn't matter because the HYDROVANE will never come off. And then this is actually using the flexible filler. So I've got to tidy that up yet. You know, I took the bulk of it off with, you know, while it was still medium set, and then I'll sort that out later. And we haven't cleaned up all the Sika yet on this as well. So you know, just once again, there's two ways of doing it. You know, it's best to probably shape it, but here and now it was too much of a pain. So I just put a pad here, and on the inside, I had to cut the aluminium plate to fit the constraints in there, and then put lots of filler on that because that was very uneven on the back of that one as well. So lots of filler. But in the end, that's the biggest issue. You know, like effectively your HYDROVANE's mounted now. You got to make sure, you know, I mean, there's lots of little things in there. You got to make sure when you set this up, you've got enough to fit the whole lot on the top. You can't clamp too close to the bottom because it'll could grab the bearing. You know, that's always got to be free spinning. That'll be connected to the rudder, so that's where it takes off. And now all of a sudden it's going to turn into a HYDROVANE. The other good news is, and I shouldn't talk about it yet, but I haven't dropped anything yet. Jane's going, don't say that, don't say that. Oh, I dropped it. So we haven't dropped anything yet. So this actually just fits over the top of this one here, and it should be pretty right. Boom. Okay, so that's got to be set up, and that'll actually be, this will be the front here, because that's the gearbox setup, and that's the back. So we've got a few things to do now. We've got to clamp that on, then we've got to do another clamp here for the transition link onto this part here. Then put the cover plate back on. Then we just about got a HYDROVANE. Rudder on, wind vane on. Then we can see, ooh, jeepers. It's interesting, eh? I pushed it across as far as I can to the center line. So we will soon know if it fits. Excuse me. I'm trying to think of anything else I can tell you. No, that's about it. We're pretty happy with the way it looks. The big thing, bless you, bless you. Yeah, it's not that hard. It's taken, if you had everything set up to go and you had an assistant all the time, you could probably do it in 2 big days. 2 big days you could do the whole thing, but we've probably taken 3 because we've been, bless you, because we've been working around a few things. I think that's it. I keep thinking, what else do I need to tell you? It's pretty basic. It's just bolting a few things together. So anyway, more later on. Thanks. See you later. Boom. One thing I forgot to mention, there is something that's very important that you've got to do. It's called the bolt tightening sequence. You can get yourself into all sorts of strife. So when you've done a medium fit of everything, you're coming to finally do your torques and stuff. It goes in this sort of fashion here. The first one to tighten, if you can see down here, is this hinging point here on the transom. You tighten up that first. When you've got that nice and tight, you tighten up the one at the back. That's that one. When you're doing these arms, you can see the arms here, the first thing you tighten up is these ones. You clamp it onto the shaft. Then the next one is the pivot bolt here, because that's all angled, and then the last one is the one down this end there. And it's the same there. You do the clamps onto the shaft, you do the bracket here on the Y bracket here, and then you do the other one. It's all got to do with not stressing the bolts, because with all of these things, what you're trying to do is make sure that the bolts are absolutely in line with the holes, and they're absolutely no stresses, and the nuts and bolts are flat on the fittings. Because if you have something that's a little bit kicked over, when the loads are working, you might pop the heads of the bolts. The bolts might just shear off because it's designed to be flat, and that's exactly what happened in the GGR. On PRB, on Damien's boat. You may remember a couple of days out, or a day and a half out, the top of the bolts broke off. And who knows why, but it could have been they weren't sitting perfectly flat on their actual, you know, through the hole with the heads perfectly flat. So you've got to be very particular about how they're tightened up. The sequence they're tightened up, and also then the torques and so on. And then I don't have any nail polish to mark the nuts and bolts, but we'll use a texture colour for now. And I'll be because they're all brand new installation, I'll be checking the first day. I'll come down and check all the nuts again, and then maybe 2 or 3 days later I'll come and check again, and then maybe a week later, because it's probably going to take 15 to 20 days to get to Fiji. So we'll just be boom, gone. It'll be the first time we sail the boat. Anyway, that's life. We've got a HYDROVANE. What else do you need? I don't know whether I want to do this. Look what I got. This is the wind vane frame. Okay, so this will be covered off with the material, the red material, and that's the flip-flop action to make it happen. And this is the big drama up here, right? But it looks okay. So this is what you call the telling moment. Let's just see what happens here. All of a sudden you realize how far off center we are as well. Okay, well that's a good start, but we won't be sailing in this direction. That's actually looking pretty good. I can tell already. Okay, so this is our course controlling knob here. Course controlling knob. This is a couple of things here. I'll explain a few brief things. This is the leading edge of the vane. Okay, I haven't clamped the lead counterbalance on that yet, but when that's on there, you always have lead is leading edge. So the lead is at the front, so that's where the wind's going to hit it first and go back that way. So if we were steering now to windward, you know, so over here, or even, you know, wind forward of the beam, it's going to be coming this way. But you can see the life raft here, it's going to cause all sorts of turbulence. I don't know whether you can see that. You see that, Jenkins? Yeah, you've got wide angle. So it's going to cause all sorts of air turbulence here, and the vane itself is going to find it hard to hunt and hold a constant course. So we just accept that fact on the basis that, you know, every boat's a compromise in some way. So if you look at this, it'll never work because the bloody thing, you're right, it's going to be some challenges there, but what, you know, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. We'll work something out if we have to sail that way for a long time. If it's on the beam, you know, if we're around here, the wind's on the beam, it's okay. You know, it's reasonably clear air. So anywhere from the beam and back is okay. By the time it gets back, you've got to allow for the flip-flop. I've got a pin in here. This is the retaining pin. If I just pull that out, this is the action. So you can see there, that's going to work all right. So anything on the beam or just a little bit forward of the beam is okay. This life raft becomes a problem as soon as we start going forward from there. So we've got clearance there, and in fact we're probably, that's the 5 centimeters that we could have been up a little bit, but that's fine. I'm happy to clear that, and if we come around, this is where we want to be sailing all the time. That'd be port quarter, broad reaching, beautiful, and we've got clearance there all the way across, so that's okay. If we just keep coming around, keep spinning around, so that's all fine. It's very interesting because we can actually cheat a little bit here anyway, but that goes through. You know, that's okay. So it's all looking pretty good. That's running behind. This is on starboard quarter. We start to connect a little bit with those ropes, but it doesn't matter because we can disconnect that block. But it's clear the main davit. That's the main thing. So anything over the port, over starboard beam is okay as well. Whoops, it easy. That pin's jammed up there, so that's interesting. Where did that come to? It's just missing the stainless steel, so that's fine. That block will be out of there. I'd rather not move the stainless steel arm, so we just clear it, so that's perfect. Thanks Will and John and all the people who were deciding on what length shaft we should have. So that's all pretty cool. And this way, if we've got it on, if we're going to windward on starboard tack, we've got the outboard here, but it's, you know, so we're cruising, we're not racing. So that's all kind of cool. I don't mind that. We can actually, if you pull that pin out, we can actually twist the axis back as well a bit. There, to desensitize in heavy weather, we can actually push the vane back like that, which desensitizes what's going on. And there's a combination thing there as well with the gearbox. So talk about the gearbox, but I'll show you some stuff when we're sailing underway with it. So you've got position 1, position 2, and freewheeling sort of thing, and it varies the amount of turn of the rudder. And it's a combination of using that plus desensitizing the vane. You can cope with heavy winds, light winds, you know, big seas, calm seas, and so on. So HYDROVANE definitely got it sussed out. You know, that's pretty good. So we've got a bit of interaction there, but it's missing the stainless steel pole. The interesting thing we thought about, we also have an autopilot. Obviously, we've got a Raymarine autopilot, which is a really good one. I haven't used it yet, but Quentin, the previous owner, tells me it works fine. I've had a look at the installation. It's fantastic. It looks like it's brand new down in the guts of it. But So on any ocean passage we do, and we won't be doing a lot, we've got a 2,000 mile leg for the next one going to Fiji, but once we're in Fiji, it'll be pretty much centered between Fiji and Tonga, and we leave it on at Vuda Marina. It's a fantastic marina in Fiji. It's sort of like home for us. We spent about 6 years there, going back and forwards and spending some winters there. Jane living on board the boat while I was down in Antarctica over the summers and stuff. Anyway, so most of our cruising then will be Fiji, Tonga, and hanging out there with a few projects in between. And so if we really wanted to use the davits with the tender, we can actually do it pretty easy, because you saw there's only 2 bolts holding this here. You take those 2 bolts off and all you're left is down there. So if we decided we needed a big dinghy, a hard bottom rib, with a big outboard, it means it's a problem even when you're doing short trips, because I hate carrying it on deck, and all those sorts of issues anyway. So it means we could actually, if we're not using the HYDROVANE for a short trip and use the autopilot, we can actually disconnect this, put it in the cabin, and just use the davits as well. So that was another reason why I didn't want to muck around with all this, but it's working out just perfect. So more to come, absolutely. Thank you.